in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. I don't know what part of that we don't get anymore. That was written by men who cared about this country deeply.
Financial Issues with Dan Celia.
AFR Talk, Financial Issues. Let me ask you a question. Does that have a little bit more meaning to you? It's not just my opener for this segment. Does it have a little bit more meaning to you today than it did, 3 or 4 weeks ago? I hope it does. And I hope that, we all take that to heart. And we really need to be aware of not only the preamble, but, we need to be aware of what's in the Constitution. And if you don't have it, if you haven't read it, man, you need to do it. And I read it yesterday, the whole thing through. And I try to do it every once in a while, but I feel like it's more important than ever. And I did come up when I read the Second Amendment. It's what you heard me talk about it yesterday. It wasn't put in there so that we can all continue to deer hunt or to pheasant hunt or whatever it is we hunt. That's not why it was there. That was a way of life for those folks. They didn't need to be told you're allowed to have guns so you can hunt. So many of the people of the country hunted because it was their food supply. It was there for security of a free state. For security of a free state. That's what it was there for. Anyway, I got Fred Jackson. I know I got a full board, but I got Fred Jackson. He's got some news updates that we ought to hear about and throw out there because so many of my listeners don't hear some of these news updates. Fred, welcome. What do you got?
Good to be back with you, Dan. Like in many cities across this country over the last few weeks, and in the town where I live last weekend, there was a gun show in this town. I just took a drive by. The place was packed. Talked to a friend of mine who went inside, and one of the busiest gun shows that they have seen. And that story has been repeated. Why is everybody excited? Why are people going to gun shows? Why can't you get ammunition in many places? Well, it's because of what the President of the United States, Barack Obama, is going to do today. In just a couple of hours from now, he is going to have a news conference where he is going to announce his response to the tragedy which occurred in Newtown, Connecticut, just before Christmas. But many people believe, Dan, that the president is simply using that incident to achieve an agenda he has wanted to achieve for a very long time, and that is to put more government controls on the sale of, the use of, the possession of weapons. And this is going to be, I think, a battle. You're just talking about the Constitution, the Second Amendment. I think most people are aware. If they're not aware of the Second Amendment, they are now because of what's been going on over the last 6 weeks. As you were just talking about, the right to defend, and for obvious reasons. I think the founders of this country were very much aware that a democracy and our freedoms are a very fragile thing, perhaps something that we have all taken for granted for many, many, many years. But I think if nothing else, there's a great awareness now. There is an agenda on the behalf of some people out there that believe some of those freedoms should be taken away, and that there should, as part of a strong central government, a government that controls more of our lives. So, with that as a background, the president is going to hold his news conference today where he will announce what he believes the steps that should be taken to curb gun violence. That is the term that is being used. And there will be several things that we believe he'll announce. Various members of the administration have been talking to reporters in Washington. A ban on assault weapons and limiting ammunition magazines to 10 rounds or fewer, a federal statute to stop what's called straw man purchases of guns, crack down on trafficking rings, an interesting one that I just read for the first time this morning with regards to school environments, more anti-bullying efforts. Now, that caught my attention, Dan, only because there's a whole new definition of bullying that has transpired over the last 4 years. Used to be when I was going to school, Dan, bullying was, the big brute at school came up and punched in the nose or whatever the case may be, a physical contact. Mm-hmm. Bullying has now been redefined as that person over there said something that offended me. He's a bully. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on this and just where that is going. Now, the secondary part of all of this is certainly there are Republicans and even some Democrats in Congress who say, wait a minute, the president may want to do this, but he needs our approval. He cannot contravene the Second Amendment. So there's going to be a bunch of things that you see today that the president already knows that even he does not have the power under executive orders to do. What's really interesting, too, what we're hearing about this news conference that's coming up in about an hour and a half or so, is political theater. He's going to have a bunch of people standing behind him, including little kids.
Yeah.
All right? This is for show. This is for show. And so you're going to see that. And also, we understand that he plans to take this show on the road. White House officials signaling that Obama would seek to rally public support for the measures he puts forward, perhaps holding events around the country or relying on his Organizing for America, which was his presidential campaign operation. So he's a dog with a bone on this, and he plans to push this thing forward using the tragedy in Newtown, Connecticut as a jumping-off point. We will be covering this very carefully today. Obviously, we'll be getting reaction from groups such as the NRA and others, the National Rifle Association and others who have a stake in all of this.
Good. Yeah, it is just so disheartening when you see this, and I think he's going to rally support so that he doesn't get impeached. I think that he knows he's breaking the law, going against the Constitution if he institutes any of these executive orders that are going to institute changes in the law, and I think he needs the support of his base and the American people to do this. But I think there is going to be, first of all, we got a beautiful thing in that the dictator up in New York did yesterday. And it's a beautiful thing because I think in real short order, it's going to show the failure of that. So that's a good thing. There was an article in the USA Today about, the 1976 gun ban in Washington, D.C. and, what happened during that time. Mm-hmm. And, we're destined to repeat that. We're going to see that again and up in New York now. And although that law is not as drastic as the one was in D.C. in 76, but nevertheless, he's look, I go back and maybe this was a harsh statement or something that might smack of some inaccuracies, but, to me, and I said this on Monday, every Marxist regime has to disarm its people in order to get really cranked up. And, we're going to just see more and more of this. I'd be willing to say that the gun show that you were talking about, there was an article today about the Las Vegas gun show. They're a little concerned because they're expecting 9,000 to 10,000 people at what normally might be 2,000 or 3,000. I don't think they're all Republicans.
No.
Fred.
No,
I got to believe that there's one or two Democrats in that crowd somewhere. So, the fact of the matter is all the Democrats said to the president, if you want to do this, you got to do it under executive order because there's no way we're going to touch this thing because it's going to be political suicide as it always has been.
The NRA, as I say, will be responding to this, but they've kind of opened the first salvo already. If you go to their website, they're playing a video there, which basically points out the president's hypocrisy for having Secret Service protect his daughters, even as he opposes the group's call for armed guards in our schools. Another indication that the real world that we all live in is kind of ignoring what the president is up to. We've carried a story in the last week or so about how teachers, the teachers union that supports the president, hundreds and hundreds of teachers showing up in several states that are offering them crash courses in how to handle a weapon.
Yeah.
So there you go. There's, as I say, there's the political theater and there's reality out there. And I think this president's out of touch with reality on this one.
I agree.
Yeah.
Fred, you're going to be following this story at onenewsnow.com.
Absolutely.
I know. And once this press conference is over, you'll, I'm sure, have on One News Now, the update on all of that. If people aren't able to hear the press conference, they'll be able to go to onenewsnow.com later in the afternoon and get the update.
Absolutely. One other note of interest for our audience, Interior Secretary Ken Salazar is calling it quits.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the oil industry will not be having a going away party for him.
I don't think so.
He has not been a friend of the oil industry. Big guy on wind power.
Yeah.
So if you have a windmill, you've done his bidding. But the oil industry will be glad to see him go.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. They shouldn't be so glad because, be careful of what you wish for because who's coming up next?
Right.
So they better be careful before they start celebrating.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. We'll be getting reaction to that too, Dan.
All right, Fred.
All
Thank
right.
you so much. I appreciate you being with us. Fred Jackson, news director at American Family News, onenewsnow.com.